Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the September board meeting of the Department of Early Education and Care. We have an important agenda ahead of us. We'll reflect on our strategic planning session that we held this morning, how it shapes our long-term goals around family access, program quality, workforce supports, agency infrastructure, and stability. We'll also take a close look at the fiscal year 2026 budget and the role it plays in sustaining our key initiatives. We'll hear an update, which I'm excited about, from the Interagency Task Force as it relates to expanded access to affordability in ways that all of government approaches that. So we have a full agenda. I look forward to it, and I'll turn it over to the Secretary for opening comments.
I just want to thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Want to name that you said full agenda a few times. I don't know if that was a signal to me to keep my comments.
You take it how you want, but.
All right, I'll do my best. I just want to say that I'm thrilled to be back here with all of my board colleagues, with the commissioner and her team. And I know there's time for this a little bit later on in the agenda, but if I could just humbly do so right now, I'd like to just thank the commissioner and her team for the very thoughtful and energizing retreat that we just finished. I know that I'm not alone in my feeling of appreciation for the opportunity to connect with one another and get organized and centered around the strategy and the work for the upcoming year. And while that description is certainly fitting, I really feel like there was much more at work, that this was really about something deeper and more artful, almost like weaving together a beautiful narrative around how we're going to work together to achieve the ends aligned with a shared moral imperative. That involving the learning and development of children, that involving the support and development of early educators, that involving opportunities for families to fulfill the lives that they envision for themselves. Needless to say, it was a great way to kick off our work together this year, and I want to thank you, and I want to thank Emily and Ian and Chris and Jackie and all the people that leaned into making that experience wonderful. And I'm happy to say more again when the opportunity presents itself. I remain in a deep place of respect and admiration for the work that early educators do with and for families throughout the traditional school year, September to June, and also during the summer months. But I just want to take a quick moment and call out and appreciate those whose work specializes in the after-school and out-of-school time care and space, education and care space. I had the opportunity to visit 2 programs recently. Unbeknownst to me, I met a child of one of our board colleagues here, which was great. But no doubt, I just want to name that those experiences are as enriching and educational and important as other experiences. And I want to publicly shout them out and appreciate the work that they do and its importance in the broad scope of education and care. Thank you, if you're listening and watching, for all that you do. The agenda is full and robust, as has already been mentioned. I'll just end by sharing my excitement for the update relative to the interagency task force work. The particulars are forthcoming, but I just want to name that the momentum has not slowed. The commitment has not waned. That work continues in earnest, and I'm excited for that conversation.
Thank you. Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary. A few updates for the board. First, last week, I had the great honor of joining Secretary Tutwiler along with Secretary Jones from the Executive Office of Labor and Workforce Development and many EC staff members on an important announcement about a new apprenticeship grant coming to the state of Massachusetts. So 3 years ago, this board challenged us and our colleagues across state government to think differently about how we might support early educators and their career pathways. And we recognized apprenticeships as a really good match for our field, but something that needed to be developed. And now, today, in partnership with the Division of Apprenticeship Standards, we have 8 registered apprenticeships. And last week, we announced a $6 million grant, the largest ever grant received by the Division of Apprenticeship Standards for apprenticeships in Massachusetts, and early education and care is the fastest growing sector for apprenticeships in Massachusetts. And it is thousands of educators who are going to be able to participate in those programs. And we are so grateful to our colleagues across state government for their support for this and the pipeline that it's building and the opportunities that it's creating, and to our team at EEC, led by Sarah Volkanot, who has really spearheaded this work. So I want to thank you all. And that was a very exciting day. As I said that day, I was brimming with pride and joy to be there. And it was actually at an after-school and out-of-school time program site where 23 apprentices recently graduated from their very rigorous, formally registered apprenticeship program, 3 of whom have now been promoted to be site directors. So it's really working. I'm really excited about it. So we also had another great event last week, which is on Saturday. We were in Worcester. The chair joined us at an event where we were celebrating the first round of the first ever Family Child Care Capital Grant Program in Massachusetts. And so we awarded 157 capital grants for family child care providers. We received 1,600 applications. So we put out $2.7 million in this first round. And we were joined by educators, particularly from the Worcester and Central Mass area, who had received grants, who are doing everything from creating new deck spaces for science and technology, to adding outdoor spaces and bathrooms to their spaces, and really excited about that program, and announcing the second round, which will be available starting October 1. That'll be a $4 million round, and so we hope to be able to reach additional providers. And so if you were not successful in the first round, I want to encourage those who weren't to reapply, and information will be available on our website starting on October 1st. This week, I want to thank the board for participating in our special August meeting of the Board of Early Education and Care. We had a single topic for that meeting, which was to authorize the agency to go out for public comment on the Commonwealth Cares for Children, or C3 program formula. And we are in the midst of that public comment period. Right now it ends Friday, September 12th at 5 p.m. We have already received more than 200 comments. On Monday night at 6 p.m., we held our public hearing associated with that public comment period. And I just want to recognize Eugenia Soilis, who masterfully managed that public comment process, and to all of those who participated. We are really looking forward to digging into the comments that we've received. We don't have substantive updates for you today because we're in the midst of that period, but we will for the October board meeting, and look forward to sharing that with all of you. And again, thank those who have taken the opportunity to provide comments. We are taking it very seriously, and your feedback and voice is incredibly important as we consider the continued growth and maturity of this C3 program. So you still have time if you want to submit comments, and you can find that information also on our website. I also wanted to share that we are participating in a new early childhood policy fellowship that is made possible by the Commonwealth Children's Fund. They have now funded a new fellowship program in partnership with East Boston Social Centers and Strategies for Children, and we are receiving 2 full-time policy fellows for 20 months. We are joined by one of them today, Ariana Burnham, I think is here. Yeah. Most recently, a graduate of the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and she'll be working on our research team under Ashley White. And we are also welcoming Regina Tabe, who will be here soon and is working with Eugenia Soilis to help support our external engagement. But we couldn't be more grateful to have an opportunity to both support young policy leaders and also to build additional capacity at the agency. So I think this is really a visionary approach by Commonwealth Children's Fund and Strategies, and we're very grateful to be able to participate in the fellowship. I also wanted to introduce the board to Caitlin Schaefer, who's our new Director of Investigation. She was here earlier. Maybe she's not here right now. But she is taking over Margie Gilberti, who retired and is joining us most recently from the Department of Children and Families. So we welcome her as our new Director of Investigations. Finally, our next board meeting will be on October 15th. And just noting for board members, this is the 3rd Wednesday, not the 2nd Wednesday. And we are looking to have that meeting in the Southeast, likely at our Taunton office, but we'll confirm that with you shortly. That concludes my updates.
Thank you, Commissioner. At this time, I'd like to open it up for public comment. I'd like to ask those who are here for public comment to try to keep their remarks to 3 minutes. I'd like to call up Daniela Bernard. Welcome.
First, I want to thank Commissioner Kershaw, Secretary Tutwiler, Chair Belcito, and the members of the board for allowing me to speak and be here today. Robert Frost said, two roads diverge in the yellow wood, and I chose the one less traveled by. But you chose the one less traveled by, which is supporting the Career Pathways Grant for families and educators. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my personal story I'm sharing with you, but I think it resonates with thousands of immigrants, people currently living in the US, with a prior degree from their country of origin. These beautiful people could contribute greatly to the greatness of this country. Unfortunately, they have faced hurdles they haven't been able to overcome. Something that leads to despair, depression and anxiety, and an increase of the individuals living on welfare, government and state expenses, which can be limited or avoided with a program like Career Pathways. By the way, my name is Daniel Bernard. I'm a Haitian lawyer and teacher. I fled from Haiti back to 2021 after they had shot my car. Since then, I've been living here in the US. Now, being in the US, I had to redefine my life, though all the credentials I had. This was not easy because of my situation. You know, living on a new land, therefore implies making a lot of sacrifices, including professional retraining, if need be, for a better and quick adjustment. As far as I'm concerned, I considered moving forward with education, one of the domains I studied and have worked in for over 20 years by then. The journey started in Florida in 2022 in early childhood education and prolonged to Massachusetts, where I am now. Therefore, fascinated by this new adventure, which is early childhood education, I decided to attend Roxbury Community College, opting for a major in early childhood education. Despite my admission, I refrained from enrolling in courses. You know why? Many reasons motivated my reluctance. I am a dad, I am married, and I have 2 daughters living on a thin little paycheck, in fact, a household with limited resources. Added to that, I am on a temporary protected status, which we call TPS, meaning I'm not qualified for financial aid, nor Mass Reconnect because of prior degrees. To tell you the truth, I was obliged to cancel my appointment at RCC for a laptop loan, for I was not sure I would be able to afford the college tuition based on the revenue of my household. Finally, I learned from multiple orientation and advising sessions that I could study part-time and even start with 1 class at RCC. After one of these sessions, long I stood in the lobby, took a deep breath, and registered for 2 courses, then informed about the Career Pathways Grant, which supported me along with my studies until the completion of the associate degree in early childhood education. In fact, this has really made a difference. It has contributed to making great changes in the lives of families and children I have had in my care in Boston, providing them with a strong foundation at an early age for the development, academic, and lifelong success. Also, I have had a better salary, which helps me support my family and pay my bills without having to rely on the state or government for aid. Thanks to the Career Pathways grant, I completed my associate degree, and now I'm able to pursue a graduate degree to develop expertise in early childhood education so I can assist students who want to become educator caregivers and those already working in the field. Additionally, I have recently begun working as the Wilkes-Barre Community College Career Pathways Director. This tells me a lot of things. It's like going back to a place I once knew, like Celine Dion said. And also it's like going back to your parents' house where you grew up, and now you go back to bring your support. That's what I'm trying to do through the Career Pathways at Wilkes-Barre Community College, which is an outstanding opportunity that you gave me. As a result, I firmly believe that keeping the Career Pathway Grant alive by allocating more funds to it is a sustainable investment that will, on the one hand, build a strong qualified workforce in Massachusetts and enhance good quality care for children and families. On the other hand, this can boost the economy and reduce poverty in the United States. I thank you for your upcoming vote, all the work you do to advocate for us, and hope to continue to work with you all in the future. As I said, this is like the road not taken, to cite again Robert Frost. This is really hard, the job that you're doing, but don't worry, you made it through the Career Pathways. Thank you, decision makers and stakeholders, for your sense of people first, for your sense of putting family and children first. And people matter through your devotion to moving forward with the Career Pathway Grant. Thank you very much. Muchísimas gracias por haber dado a mí esta oportunidad para estar aquí con ustedes. Merci en pile. Moi compte sur votre nous. I count on your vote to keep the Career Pathways alive. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Daniela, thank you for what you do. Appreciate the gratitude, but this doesn't work without this partnership, and more importantly, thank you for sharing your story with us.
It's up to me to thank you. Share Belcito.
Is anyone else here for public comment? That's all I had on the sign-in sheet. We good? All right, we're going to move on to a piece of routine business. We have before us the minutes of the August 13th, 2025 board meeting. Are there any additions, correction, or edits to those minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Carolyn?
Wasn't there.
Jim, were you there? Were you on
For the.
the August meeting?
I was not.
Okay, so you abstained, okay.
I think we all said it at the same time.
Oh, sorry, okay.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Great, so the minutes have passed.
Okay.
All right, so now we'll jump into our agenda here. As has been alluded to, this morning we kicked off a strategic planning session with the leadership team of EEC and EOE to discuss our collective work going forward. We are well underway in the strategic planning process, as you can see. And I want to thank the EEC team for their leadership to get us engaged, and want to thank the many stakeholders who have already or will add their voice to the process. This agency, this board, and our leaders in the field, both providers and advocates, have partnered with us a lot over the last few years, and it's been a busy few years. Our discussion this morning really focused on how to maintain, learn, grow, and manage the change we have all experienced over the last few years. As we embark on a new strategic plan, you will see that our work over the next 5 years is really about the continuation of our work, and most importantly, addressing the learning that we have had about our work to shape the future. We have a lot on our agenda for this upcoming year and for the next 5 years. We will need to continue to build the level of partnership with our partners in the field, our colleagues in state government, which we will hear about later with the task force, with the legislature, in local communities and with the business community in order to achieve our ambitious goals. We have made tremendous progress, and as I mentioned this morning, the progress we have made is not absolute or complete. It takes all of us to be intentional about continuous improvement and continuous learning. The work will continue over the next 5 years, and partnership will be the key to success. Access, infrastructure, program quality, workforce supports, and program stability will all be frameworks on how we think about prioritizing our work ahead. Before I turn it over to my board colleagues, I'd like to turn it over to the commissioner for some comments as well on this morning.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank all the board for your participation this morning. As we discussed, we feel at the agency and in partnership with our stakeholders that we are on a very strong path at the agency and that we have turned over many rocks and begun many projects and initiatives. And we believe that the next 5 years are really about going further, going deeper, executing and delivering on the work that we've started, positioning the system, continuing to strengthen the foundation of our work in the infrastructure, as well as positioning the system for growth, should we have the opportunity to do that in some of the key areas. So this morning, we spent some time looking back for a few minutes on the many things that we've been able to accomplish in FY25 with your support and the support of our legislature and the incredibly talented EEC team. And we've also had a chance to look about the priorities for fiscal 26. So before we got into sort of the broader and took a step out and looked at what our strategic plan looks like from 26 through 2030, we really focused on what we're going to be looking at in FY26. And we have sort of 5 key programmatic areas. So continuing our work and reform around childcare financial assistance. So continuing to execute on the work that we've started around regulatory reform, policy reform, information technology, really creating a human-centered system that puts families at the center. And we have a lot of work across policy and practice and IT to be able to do that. We also continue to work on the modernization and business process for our background record check process, which is the front door to our workforce system and a key part of our health and safety commitment to those working in the field and to the parents that have their children enrolled in our programs every day. We will continue our work. We have a long queue of regulatory revisions, and this year we'll be working on the residential regulations, which we hope to bring you to send for public comment in October. And we'll also be working on our child care licensing regulations, starting with family child care and working through our group and school age child care program licensing as well. And then workforce is always at the center of what we're doing. So this year we are really looking forward to being able to land our new educator credential. We have a new educator portal that we're going to be working on to make it easier to engage with the agency, to register your level of skill and educational attainment. And then the Commonwealth Cares for Children, which is such a foundational element of the program. As I mentioned, we're in the midst of a public comment period. That program has now been codified into statute, and you'll see in our budget presentation, level funded at $475 million. We continue to be the only state in the country that has retained this COVID-era stabilization program, and it's this agency's commitment in partnership with our stakeholders to understand how best to use those resources to strengthen and stabilize our system and make investments in the workforce and in the quality of programs. So these are sort of the 5 key programmatic areas that we'll be focusing on this fiscal year. And again, thinking about them from those who are in the field and those that we are in partnership, what we expect to achieve as a result of focusing on those efforts. So we are going to be implementing a new family advisory council that will be able to elevate and lift the voice of families into our work. We have a new rate increase to implement. It's small, but we want to continue to make progress on moving towards the cost of care. We will continue our modernization efforts and updating our policies and procedures. As I mentioned, we expect the BRC process, the background record check process, to continue to get more efficient and easier to access for those who are applicants in that system. We have regulation revisions, C3 changes, and continuing our deep commitment to changes in our workforce and supporting both compensation through loan repayment and scholarships and investments through C3, but also in professional development and higher education opportunities to ensure that we have meaningful career pathways for those who are working. So we're pretty excited about our FY26 work and the priorities that we have discussed with all of you. And then we had an opportunity this morning to sort of go back out a little bit further. So first, this is what all of those priorities for FY26 look like in terms of board agenda items. So we don't have dates on these right now, but things that you will expect to hear about, like the task force, which we'll be hearing about later today. We will present options and have a vote on our rate increase. We'll be updating you on our family portal and our educator portal. We'll continue to update you on our capital investments and C3 program as it continues. So we have a busy and aspirational agenda ahead for the board and for the agency. So we spent time on FY26, and then we did have an opportunity to kind of step back and think about the strategic action plan. So as we zoom out a little bit and have an opportunity to think about going deeper, further in terms of all of these key priorities for FY26 through 2030, they get a little less concrete, but nonetheless, we are committed to continuing within our existing strategic priorities and continuing to make progress in each of these areas. So I want to thank the board for your engagement, for your help in identifying where we have opportunities that may have been missed and where we need to make sure that we're prioritizing on behalf of the board's interests and priorities. So thank you again for the time you spent this morning, and we look forward to bringing that strategic action plan to you later this fall. I'll turn it back
Thank you,
to the
Commissioner.
board.
I'd love to open it
Yeah.
up to the board for any reflections on this morning's session with the team.
So the energy, engagement, and enthusiasm this morning was just amazing. It was just a lot of fun. And I think it allowed me, and I expect that my board members feel the same, to really engage more fully and personally with what outcomes and priorities we are especially looking to discuss. So I think that will really help us when we had to put a sticky on and then decide what was the best. It will really help us and lead us to a more robust discussion in the future about those areas.
Thank you, Linda. Any other comments or reflections from the board?
I would just echo the same comments that it's really nice to do the interpersonal interactions and really share more than just, a comment here or there. And then, with the public testimony we just heard, I mean, that was just the icing on the cake for me for a great day, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I thought the session was really well facilitated, and there's a lot of power in having to stand before goals and priorities and commit literally in writing what you think about it from your stakeholder perspective. So I just, kudos to the team at EEC for facilitating that. I thought it was really effective. We actually do something very similar at J&J every year. We call it a gallery walk, and it's essentially the same type of exercise, and it's shared accountability, common purpose are the themes that come out of it. So it'll be very interesting to see, to Linda's point, how this plays out as we learn more about the strat plan later in the year.
Yeah, thanks, George. Anyone else? Great. Well, thank you. Obviously, this will be, talk about shared accountability. That's a good way to think about this as we think about how to hold ourselves accountable to the session this morning and the urgent work ahead. And the infrastructure and resources we need to support our many initiatives that are on this wheel here of things to get to. But want to thank the board, want to thank the team for the start of this process, not only as we focus on what's in front of us for this year, but over the next couple of years as we continue to. I think I talked about this a little bit this morning. It takes a lot of work to be the only state in the country that, put $475 million into their budget to carry through those COVID-era dollars, and it takes a lot of work and effort to lead the nation in this space. And we're holding ourselves accountable and we're doing the work. And it's the effort of this collective body, the team, at EEC and throughout government that's enabling us to do that. And so more work to do, more learning to do, but the mindset, I think, is there for us to be able to do good things. And lastly, I would just say, through all this work that we've done, want to just send thanks to our friends in the field, providers every day who time and time again add their voice to many of the things on this wheel to help make it better in practice every single day. And so that relationship, we consider you part of the team here as we think about how to move this sector and this field forward here in the Commonwealth. So kudos and thanks to the folks in the field that continue time and time again to add their voice to all of these topics to make them better than they were the day before. So that's good work.
If I may just add, there were a couple of reflections that I heard from board members that we are going to be taking back and thinking about both as we execute, hopefully, on our key priorities for FY26 and build those as the foundation for the strategic action plan for the next 5 years. One of the key themes I heard from all of you that we will definitely be executing on, and in a way we'll have some of that as we talk about the task force this afternoon, is that our ambitious agenda is not something that can be accomplished by EEC alone, and appreciate sort of the recognition by the board members that we need to be leading and driving in a lot of cases where we want to go, but leveraging partnerships and additional resources, whether it's a new fellowship program or task force across state government, or resources from our employer or business communities. That part of our job is to achieve what we've set out to accomplish by engaging partnerships and leveraging additional resources. The other key reflection that I was taking away from what I heard from board members was the pace of change, and making sure as we move what is a very ambitious agenda forward, that we're doing at the pace of change that our field can tolerate and handle, and that we're working on both the technical changes and making sure we're communicating those, whether it's a regulation change or a new IT system or feature, but also making sure that we're doing the culture work about how we're partnering with our community, how we're lifting up the voice of families, how we're centering their experience in what we're doing, and so that we're paying attention both to communicating effectively the technical changes at the same time that we're working on supporting the culture shift that we're looking for in the transformation in our system. So I found both of those to be sort of consistent themes from across board members, and really helpful for us as we go into the drafting and rolling up our sleeves and getting to work. So thank you again to the board for your thoughtful engagement and your deep passion for the work that we're doing. It came across very clearly.
Thank you. I think we'll go to our next agenda item if you want to tee up Eric.
Sure, yeah. So I want to invite Eric Hansen, who's our Chief Financial Officer, to join us. So most of you are aware that the FY26 state budget was finalized in early July. So many of you may have seen this information, and we definitely shared it out in writing, and others are also sharing information. But we have not met as a board since the budget was finalized, and we thought, really thinking about the strategic work, the priorities for FY26, and in thinking about the board's priorities for 27 and beyond, we want to make sure it's grounded in a sort of key set of foundational information about what was in the 26 budget and what we will be responsible for overseeing and implementing. So I will turn it over to you, Eric, and as usual, jump in with comments here or there.
Very good. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you again for inviting me here to speak about our now final FY26 budget. I'm going to tell you that EEC is funded at $1.7 billion for 26, which is a 10% increase from our last year's final budget. But I really want to talk more, too, about what is really, in the spirit of our conversations today, behind those numbers, is that it's not just about the figures or the dollars, but the support, maintenance, and programming that they continue to put forward. So, moving on. We show this slide pretty frequently in our past few conversations to go through the budget process. And again, harkening back to some of our discussion earlier this morning and today about partnership, that's exactly what the budget development process is, going all the way back to January with the governor's filing of her FY26 budget, iterating on it through the House and the Senate in the springtime, their budgets, before finally reaching consensus in June and July with our FY26 final budget, or what I'll sometimes refer to as the GAA, General Appropriations Act. But the budget process doesn't stop here in July. I view very much this timeline as planning and deliberation, time for input from the public, stakeholders, and now we're moving into the fiscal year of management and action on the budget. So some of the highlights here in 26 are continued from the administration's filing of our budget back in January. So these are CPPI level or funded at more than $20 million to provide enough funding to sustain existing communities participating in this program, but limiting to some extent the agency's ability to expand further. The FY26 budget supports our child care financial assistance program at more than $1 billion to maintain the caseload increases we've seen in the past many years. And we're very thankful for our partners in the legislature for taking the governor's recommendations on this. Also, as we've talked before, again, C3 level funded to last year at $475 million to continue that crucial operational support for our providers in the field. In this slide here, we'll take a look at a little bit more detail at some of the FY26 budget highlights, but I'd like to draw your attention to a few key areas. As I mentioned, $1 billion for child care financial assistance and $475 million for C3. And I'll say C3 is funded as what we call a fund split, so partially by general appropriation dollars from the general fund, so think your standard tax collections, things of that nature, non-tax revenues, and largely by fair share funding from the newest revenue source in the past previous years. There is also in our budget $57 million for our administration and quality line items. So these fund our operational supports. $5 million of that is slated for educator scholarships. More about that later, as you'll notice. We'll get into some detail about this as well. So
let me just take a step back for a second and share with the board. We have sort of 4 key watch areas that I want to make sure we are highlighting, as Eric is saying. So the first is our caseload accounts. As you all know, this is something we track very closely. We are experiencing about 31,000 families on the waiting list for child care financial assistance. We did get the support of the legislature and the governor for a supplemental budget for this past fiscal year. So we are serving more children than we ever have before, 10,000 more in the last 2 years. And we are thrilled about that. This funding level, we think, will allow us to maintain access for all the families that we currently have, as well as projected increases likely in DCF-related childcare, so families being referred from the Department of Children and Families, and DTA-related, or families being referred from the Department of Transitional Assistance. We do not think this funding level is going to allow us to reopen access for our income-eligible families, and those are the ones that are on the waiting list. So we will clearly be tracking it very closely. We are hearing a lot of need in the field and from providers about families who need assistance paying for child care financial assistance. So we are grateful for the support of the legislature and the governor at $1.06 billion for child care financial assistance, but we also recognize the need is enormous out there. So that is our top watch area. I also wanted to mention that in our administrative and quality accounts, which fund staff in the agency, took a pretty significant reduction this year that we are proposing some one-time solutions to, working closely with the administration and finance, and we'll be working with the House Ways and Means Committee to make sure that we can maintain all of our staffing and capacity and the information technology projects. So we are worried about the administrative level. We do have a strategy to try and close the gap in this fiscal year, but it's something that we're going to be watching very closely and we'll be talking about and planning into FY27. Everything we do is predicated on having the capacity and ability to deliver on it from the staff at the agency. The third watch area is, we as an administration, the Haley Driscoll administration, had a very ambitious agenda for our Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative, which was to be in every gateway city by the end of this fiscal year, and then continue growth and expansion in what is our strategy around universally accessible early education. And we were in the midst, of a CBPI roadshow where we're learning directly from the communities about the incredible impact this program is having for families and children. So we had a very ambitious $50 million investment in the governor's House 1 budget and associated supplemental budgets. We received level funding for this program, so the good news is we're able to retain and maintain support for all the communities that we're currently working with, but we are not at this time able to grow to additional communities, which is really our hope. So that's another area. And then the fourth area you're going to hear about in a little bit more detail is our Career Pathways program, which has been, I can't speak any better than our Daniela.
Oh,
Daniello. About the impact of that program and the important role it plays in supporting educators. So that program 2 years ago was at 10 million. This year it was funded at 3 million, and we have a proposal a little bit later in this agenda to try and bring it closer to whole from moving some additional funds around in the budget. So that's obviously another watch area for us. It's a very important bridge into the higher education system and delivering high quality or educational opportunities for our educators every day. So those are kind of our 4 key watch areas. Sorry, Eric, just
No,
jumping in.
very good.
All right.
Thank you, Commissioner, for highlighting those. And I'll just add to that to say that when we move into like management and action on the budget and talking about partnership, this is what we're talking about. It's not a set in stone necessarily item, but we do work with partners to leverage funding that we can use for continued success of those programs that Commissioner has mentioned. So this slide here is some of that line item or account level detail that you'll see of funding changes throughout the years from FY25 in the left column, FY25 GAA, to the governor's filed budget in the center column, and then our final budget to the right. I will notice, as Commissioner had noted earlier, our 2 operational accounts, admin and quality improvement. You can see that there is that reduction to the quality improvement line. It does pose a challenge for our agency. We are working with partners across state government, leveraging additional partnerships and resources to continue operations and maintain progress and programs. But again, remains a watch area for us moving forward. This next slide here is our fair share funded line items. I'll note that, as I mentioned at the top of my presentation, C3 is that first line in the table here. So of that 475 million, 360 million is funded from fair share. So in closing, I do want to talk about an FY25 funding bill, which has
Yeah, so-
implications for 26.
So let me just take a step back and just say the funding that the agency has received for fiscal year 26 really comes from 3 sources. So the general, in the line items, you can see sort of the general fund accounts and what level they were funded at. Fair share, or the so-called millionaire's tax revenue, is also in our line items, as Eric said, as fund splits. So whether it's childcare financial assistance or C3, you can see there's funds that are coming from fair share. The governor and also the legislature also included what's called the supplemental budget. And this is actually FY25 dollars that are filed into a supplemental budget that are also being made available to the Department of Early Education and Care. So there was a governor's proposal, which is where that nice 50 million for Commonwealth Preschool Partnership existed, and then negotiations along the way. And the final supplemental budget I'll turn it back to Eric to kind of walk through what was included in that. But so we are fortunate in education and in transportation, I would say too, that we have access to the fair share revenues. So in addition to the general operating funds that we receive through our line items, fair share is also providing additional resources and opportunities for investment.
Right, thank you. Yes, to Commissioner's point, this fair share supplemental budget is appropriates money from the fair share tax revenues that exceeded kind of projections for that year. But we can have the ability to spend it in this year. And it includes $45.5 million total for the agency, 20 million of which will go towards rate increases for CCFA providers. We have a working group on this now. I look forward to implementing that. 8 million for early education and care staff scholarships, 7.5 million for loan repayment, and then the remaining 10 million is capacity building funding. And we have plans for that to help support and maintain our programming where we did see some reductions in the GAA, such as career pathways, such as CPPI, and some of our operational needs as an agency as well.
So we're very fortunate to have both the supplemental budget in general, which makes investments that we don't see in the line items like a rate increase, and then to have this $10 million in flexible funds, which will help us fill the gap on administrative and career pathways, and will also allow us to jumpstart some of the implementation for the task force, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So there's some great news for us in this budget. I mean, $1.7 billion for the agency, growth, stability in the Commonwealth Cares for Children, and then some key watch areas or things we would have liked to have seen as an agency and as a board continue to grow, but those will be areas of focus for us certainly in FY27.
Questions regarding the budget? Eric, thank you.
Yeah.
You've kept us up to date throughout the process, which is really helpful when it actually, to me, I'm sitting here thinking about like that wheel of all we have to do with the resources that we have. So just being updated on how this all works and moves so fast is really helpful. So thank you for
Thank you
your
very much,
your
Chair.
leadership.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Great.
All right, I think we're going to move to our next agenda item.
Terrific. So inviting Jocelyn Bown and Sarah Cian to join us up here, and the whole meeting so far has been a natural segue into this
Yes.
agenda item.
Right.
So like to turn over to Jocelyn and Sarah to walk you through our strategy for supporting higher education pathways, including the Career Pathways Program, and Erica Morin joining us also, our General Counsel. We have presented some information to remind the board about our various higher education opportunities, how each of them fill certain specific roles within our system, and then have a proposal for the board's consideration about how to fund these in FY26.
Great, thank you. And while our action today is largely an administrative effort to support our allocation of funding in FY26 to support educators in accessing higher education, I just wanted to contextualize it briefly. As you've heard, we're supporting educators advancing personally and professionally, both through higher education and through professional learning. So this is really the ways in which we're supporting higher education. And our goals in supporting access to higher education is really to support educators in matriculating and advancing through certificates and degrees. So I think one advantage to that is it allows us to really leverage all the available funding strategically. I'm going to turn it to Sarah to give an overview of Career Pathways.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Career Pathways has really changed a little bit this year because we've had the opportunity to take advantage of funding that's available to us through Mass Reconnect, Mass Educate, and the ECE Scholarship. But what sets Career Pathways aside as an important program of its own is the single point of contact at each one of the colleges. And you just heard from the single point of contact at Roxbury Community College. And every college has someone who sits in a similar position to Daniello, who is really there for students from when they want to get started. So that person serves in an advising capacity, a guiding capacity, supportive, any kind of thing that they need capacity. And this year, what they're really focusing on is helping students become college students, moving away from taking sort of like one-off courses that maybe they just needed, but really helping them get into a matriculated pathway towards either the new foundational certificate that the community colleges have put together this year. It's a 16-credit certificate that will be directly linked into our new credential system, or towards a full associate's degree if they want. So they help them connect with the existing infrastructure at the college. So they help them connect with the financial aid office, with admissions, because they need to do their application, with the advising center, with tutoring, with all of the things that they need to do. And then there is some money left over for people who don't qualify for the other financial aid that's available through Mass Aid, for people who have prior degrees or who might not be eligible for a variety of reasons. So I think that relational and person support that Career Pathways provides at the colleges is really what is the pivotal part of the program.
Thank you. And then the other component of our support for higher education is the Early Childhood Educator Scholarship Program. And I think just building off of what Sarah said, we now have Mass Educate, Mass Reconnect. We have a foundational set of options to fund students who are matriculated, who are taking 6 credits at a time. This provides another layer of support. It's a little bit more flexible in terms of the number of credits you're taking. It does still require matriculation, but this is a support. And then, as Sarah mentioned, the money that's available through Career Pathways can support students that are not eligible for either of these. So our proposal, bear with me, this is complicated. It gives us there's a little bit of detail about how money is moving. Commissioner, you can tell me if I'm going into too much detail here. But I think it is helpful at least to understand sort of where all the parts are coming from, and also understand the part that you're voting on.
I'll just start by giving the higher level view, which is we have these 2 programs that are working very effectively. You heard about Career Pathways. It's an entrance in. We've been working very closely over the last 2 years to figure out how to best use the dollars that are available in Career Pathways to do the things that are not otherwise available in the system, whether it's for students who may not be otherwise eligible, the advising, the wraparound we know that our students need, or taking one course as a pathway in. In the higher education side, we've shared with you that we on the higher education scholarship, we've been expanding the number of majors. We've been making it easier to apply. We've been doing a ton of outreach. In fact, I would like to say that this is the first year since this program existed, since 2006, that we've used every penny for eligible students, and I couldn't be more excited about that, because that is, we're serving more students in this program than we ever have before, and that's folks who are advancing their own economic mobility and degrees, and then going back and working in an early childhood setting. So we have these 2 programs. We've been working hard to make them work, to be performing exactly as they should be, and then we got some additional funding elsewhere in the budget for higher education scholarships. And our proposal, in short, allows us to allocate that, instead of setting up a brand new program when we have 2 programs that are already working and have funding needs as they are, to transfer those funds into these programs to allow us to maximize the existing successful programs rather than trying to set up something new on top of what already exists and is doing good work. So that's the broader frame for it.
I'll be brief. So within our budget lines, and in combination with money in DHE's budget lines, we have about $15 million allocated to support these different pathways. We're proposing funding both Career Pathways and the scholarship at $7.5 million each through a combination movement of funds from different lines. For the Career Pathways, we are pulling funding $3 million from the appropriation for Career Pathways, another $2 million from the Fair Share supplemental line that you just heard from, and then proposing to you, and you will vote on this step, that we also take $2.5 million from our administrative line that was allocated for the scholarship program and move it into Career Pathways in recognition of the fact that that program does provide important support for students that are not eligible for the other scholarships. And then on the scholarship side, we propose moving the balance of that line into the scholarship program that we are jointly running with DHE, which we did last year as well. So any questions on any of that before I turn it over to Erica for the motion?
Any questions?
Okay.
So I'm not going to read the first paragraph on here because it's technical, but it's what Jocelyn just said, except for kind of explained a slightly different way and where the authority comes from. But the motion itself is that the Board of Early Education and Care, subject to revision by the Commissioner, approves the department's proposal to submit to the Board of Higher Education for its approval the use of $2.5 million from that admin line, that scholarship funds line, toward the Career Pathways program for fiscal year 2026.
So in theory, we're voting to just move money from one account to the other, in theory. Right.
And authorize us to work with the line item language requires both EEC to do something and the board,
Yep.
the Board of Higher Education. So you did something similar to this last year. We did a similar
Yeah, the scholarship money we're
movement
moving
of
it
funds
into.
to keep Career Pathways whole. Sorry.
Sorry, the scholarship fund the money sits with DHE.
Yes, yep.
So we're moving it from our scholarship
Yep.
line
To-
item to theirs,
Yep.
effectively, yeah.
And then the other part of that line, there was 5 million in that
Right.
line, is moving into our career path, is becoming available to the Career Pathways
Yep.
program. So we're basically taking an administrative line, splitting it in two to leverage an existing scholarship program and support Career Pathways. And in all of these areas, we will be coordinating with the Department of Higher Education and their board.
So we are seeking your approval to do what we've said and to bring that to the department, to the Board of Higher Ed, so that they can hopefully consider and approve it as well.
Any questions?
And next year, maybe it'll just all go into the right line items.
When does it become a pattern? But yeah,
And if it doesn't, we're going to be back doing this again.
which is also fine. So
Yes.
it's all good. So hearing no questions, I would make the motion that the Board of Early Education and Care, subject to revision by the Commissioner, approve the department's proposal to submit to the Board of Higher Education for its approval the use of $2.5 million from the scholarship funds towards the existing Career Pathway program for FY '26. Can I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Jen? Okay. And the motion passes. Thank you all.
Thank you.
With that, we'll take about a 5-minute break before we hear from the task force. All right, welcome back, everybody. We have one more agenda item, and to start off and kick us off, I'd like to hand it to the secretary.
Thank you kindly. Good afternoon again. I'm really excited to introduce this next agenda item, which is an update on the Interagency Task Force. This board has had a number of updates on the task force work, but just by way of really brief historical, Governor Healy signed an executive order in January of '24 calling for the whole of state government to lean into solving some of the more pressing issues around access, affordability, workforce pipeline, in early education and care. I also know that she signed that executive order because she understands and appreciates the importance of early education experiences for young children. She also understands the centrality of this sector when we think about economic stability, economic development, the idea of the workforce behind the workforce. And so last year we got to work under this executive order, learning first, and then also doing research, which resulted in the first report, which we celebrated last spring, 29 recommendations that, if I can channel a comment that Dr. Lucas made to me, are really more than recommendations. They're really more like commitments that we're making to this important work, and I really see it that way as well. And we've gotten to work getting to delivering on those commitments, and we've got a dream team of professionals who are here today to talk a little bit about that. I'll introduce them going from my left. Faith Ambrose, who's a member of my team at EOE, Allison Pinto. The card says Boston Consulting Group, but we're going to draw a line through that and say Executive Office of Education, because that's where she lives right now. Dana Sullivan from A&F, and then from EEC, two awesome individuals, Emily Connor-Simons and Gabby Santana Goldstein. I'll turn it over to you for the presentation.
Thank you so much for having us today. We're looking forward to speaking with you to update you on the progress of the task force this year. We're planning to give a quick overview of the task force, what we are, our values, our priorities as a group, and then we're going to share a little bit more about the exciting progress and a couple of key recommendations. So I'm going to pass it over to my teammate Allison, who's going to take us through, and then we'll go around as well.
Great. Thank you, Dana. And thank you for the great introduction, Secretary Tutwiler. So you did a great job of introducing this slide. You kind of covered a lot of what's here, but I'll run through it again. So as you all know, last January, Governor Healy signed an executive order that established the Interagency Early Education and Child Care Task Force with the goal of ensuring that Massachusetts leads the nation in early education and child care across all of the dimensions that the Secretary mentioned and we can see on the board. The task force really uses the whole of government approach and is bringing together the Secretary of Education, the Secretary of Labor Workforce Development, and the Secretary of Economic Development, along with all of the additional members you can see on the board here to drive progress across government. And we have also been continuing to engage with stakeholders across Massachusetts, as you heard in the listening sessions in the previous year. And as we continue the work in year two, we're meeting with industry leaders, health service professionals, housing and planning experts, and of course, parents and caregivers and childcare providers and experts as well. So lots of people are still being engaged in the work. And I'll get into more on what we have done shortly, but the task force developed the year one report and is coordinating the efforts along with that in year two. So Secretary Tutwiler, again, did a great job laying this out, but in year one, we really focused on learning, so we shaped that around the listening sessions. We also surveyed practices of other states and nations, and then identified existing resources and opportunities across government. And now in year two, we're working on implementing all of the work that was established in the year one report. Those were centered around 29 different recommendations, and those recommendations are centered on the 5 main goals that you can see listed there, mainly around access and availability, high quality education, early education and child care programming, and then affordability for our families, fostering sustainable business conditions, and building a robust workforce ecosystem. We are also in the progress of working on a year two report that will update you all in more detail and all of our stakeholders on the progress that we've made in year two, and we'll establish how we're going to continue the work going into year three. And then we also wanted to give you all some details on how we're actually structuring this work in year 2. So we've set up a project management team, as you can all see today, and we have a structure that goes along with that. So as you can see at the top, we have the whole of government task force membership. This involves designees from across all of the agencies that are involved in the task force. And then underneath that, we have the steering committee. These are folks from, or co-chair designees and Commissioner Kershaw that are responsible for helping set the direction of our PMO team. So we meet monthly and talk about all of the strategies around moving these recommendations forward. And then, as we've mentioned, we have the project management team. That is the 5 of us sitting here today. And we are really doing the kind of day-to-day work of convening those working groups, making sure the recommendations are moving forward in partnership with all of the folks across the government. And our intention is really for this PMO team to function as the coordinating body. We're collecting information, convening the right people, and trying to keep folks on track. But a lot of the work is also being carried out across agencies, and we are really just reporting on it and making sure that the progress is known across all of the stakeholders. And here is just an overview of all of the recommendations. These were what were published in the year 1 report. This is kind of the shorthand that we have been using to keep track of the many different priorities that the task force is driving forward. You can see on the right-hand side, there's a lead agency assigned to each of them. Not shown here, we also have a point person assigned to each of the recommendations and then a PMO lead also. So there are 2 kind of key contacts for each of the recommendations who are focused on driving this work forward. And we are excited to report that we have made progress against all of these recommendations. Some of that is just a meeting figuring out the direction. Some of that is a much more robust working group system that has been set up, but we're making progress and are really excited about that. And we wanted to just share some key highlights of some of the early wins that we've had as a task force. So we're highlighting 6 of the different recommendations here for you all today, but are happy to also share any updates about other recommendations if folks are curious. So I'll pass it to Dana to chat about the Health Connector.
So the Health Connector for Business is Massachusetts' official healthcare insurance marketplace for small employers, and they offer coverage options for businesses with fewer than 50 FTEs. We've been working with the Health Connector for Business to design webinars specific to early educators. We hosted a focus group last month that was really exciting with a few business owners. We had a really great representation from both FCCs and center-based, and it seems like it could help get access to more healthcare coverage options at a more affordable price. And
Dana, will you, sorry to interrupt, will you just remind everyone what the recommendation, what the need was that was identified and the recommendation that this progress is going towards?
Absolutely.
Please.
So this is part of our benefits recommendation. So one of the key needs identified was benefits, and what we did was actually break that up because there's health benefits, there's retirement benefits, and then we've also learned that insurance, just in general, is a topic that we need to look into for year 3, and so that is top of mind as well. But within these benefits, we've set it up so it's healthcare and retirement, and within the healthcare, we've also even further talked about the needs of FCCs versus center-based. The Health Connector for Business actually spans both of them, because if you are an FCC within more than one employee who's not related to you, you can access the Health Connector for Business. And so within that focus group we had, people were really excited. They didn't know this existed. It gives more options. And so we're going to have a set of webinars in October. We've worked with Eugenia and the team at EEC to figure out what time. And the Health Connector team has been really wonderful to work with. And we're excited to see how those go.
And I will chime back in to chat about our recommendation around public spaces. So one of the recommendations around creating more access to childcare was looking at identifying opportunities to leverage underutilized public spaces to create more childcare space. So we have a recommendation where we're working with EOE folks, EEC, and DCAM to try to advance this. we are working on convening a meeting with Commissioner Kershaw and Secretary Tutwiler next week to chat with some university presidents, community college presidents as well, to discuss the potential of creating more childcare on campuses, how they want to support their students, and also share some learnings from the Itsy Bitsy Child Watch program at Holyoke Community College. It's been a really exciting example of how childcare availability can really support the students at academic institutions. So we're really excited about the progress on that recommendation as well.
So I'll just remind the board that we had one of our meetings at the Holyoke Community College, and we had an opportunity to tour what was then a very small space where Itsy Bitsy Child Watch was, and we looked at their it was sort of broken down to the studs where the new space was going to be when we were there. I think it was March of 2024, maybe we were there. 2025, maybe it was last year. I think it was last year. I also want to mention that the Davis Foundation, where Paul used to work, had a really big role in making sure that the Itsy Bitsy Child Watch program could do the renovations and open in its new beautiful space. And good example of sort of the public-private partnership and leveraging. But one of the things that Holyoke Community College and Kim Quinlan, who leads early childhood for Holyoke Community College, shared at the time was that having access to childcare for the students not only sort of supported them and their children and their educational growth, but they also were seeing real outcomes in terms of retention, graduation rates, and the ability for students to go on and continue their education or go into high demand industries. So one of the things we're going to have an opportunity is to share some of the learnings of those outcomes that Holyoke Community College is having when we talk to the community college presidents.
That's great.
Thank you.
Okay, Emma. Hi, everyone. So under the umbrella of sustainable business practices, one of our recommendations was to further continue to support the sector as the business owners that they are, in addition to being the wonderful educators to our littlest learners, my own included. And one of the ways we're doing that is through making the Business Front Door available to early childhood educators. The Business Front Door is a platform created by the Executive Office of Economic Development, really meant to be a one-stop shop for any business wanting to start, grow their business within the Commonwealth or move their business to the Commonwealth to access any and all programs, resources, or even get the smallest of questions answered by any of the government agencies. This came about through their own listening sessions where some of the feedback they received was, while doing business in the Commonwealth is great in so many aspects, we're having a lot of trouble really navigating the available programs and resources. And so you can imagine in this sector where they have the double responsibility of being a business owner and an educator, probably how difficult that may be. We are very excited that the Executive Office of Economic Development prioritized this sector in the very first iteration of this platform rolling out. They have a dedicated navigator, which is me, so a human being. You're looking at her. So I'm a human being who answers all inquiries that come in through the platform, through this sector. Since we created this slide, we have blown past the 20 inquiries, ranging from everything from general business advisement to I'm actually in the process of looking for a new facility. We have an office that helps folks find locations free of charge, to financing and loan support, to workforce support. And we've been able to connect them with our friends over at the Commonwealth Corporation under Labor and Workforce to access some of their workforce training support, Mass Development, the Mass Office of Business Development, and the Small Business Office as well that EOED directs a lot of their businesses to. So it's early days, but I'm very, very excited about this coordinated effort, and hopefully the next time we present to you, we can have some more information on the outcomes that we're seeing from this and the impact it's having on educators. So.
So this initiative sits under our workforce recommendations, and this focuses on formalizing the higher education pathways available to our early educators and connecting them to financial assistance. And so, as you may know, EEC has been working really hard to launch a 16-credit early childhood education certificate at each of our 15 community colleges. Our task force working group has been working to support EEC in making sure that all students who would like to enroll in the certificate program are able to use Mass Educate and Mass Reconnect dollars to be able to support them along this journey. So we're currently in the process of finalizing a draft guidance for chief academic officers at each of our community colleges to provide guidance around course scheduling and financial aid to ensure that all of our students, including those who need to take one class at a time, are able to complete the courses required for the certificate and be able to fund their experience. We are hoping to have this finalized within the next coming weeks and have it sent out to our community colleges very shortly. So more to come on this. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to share a little bit about one of our recommendations that is a collaboration between EEC and EEA, which is really focused on expanding access to nature and the outdoors for more families and more programs.
Emily, who's EEA?
Sorry, yes, the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. So we have been working together to develop different initiatives to expand access to and awareness about nature-based opportunities. So we had our first working group meeting a few weeks ago, have another one coming up in a couple weeks, and we're exploring a few ideas, including some potential communications campaigns to help kind of generate awareness about the importance of outdoor play for child development and child learning and growth, as well as some opportunities to train staff within the EEC system on kind of established early education nature activities and curriculums, and also considering some potential grant programs around improving outdoor play spaces, potentially outdoor gear, and some gardening initiatives that that have been really successful. So a lot more to come there as well, but exploring a lot of really exciting ideas with a range of folks, from folks who are running outdoor education programs to folks at Mass Audubon and other organizations who are really committed to this work.
Okay. And as it relates to the recommendation around expanding family-friendly policies at places of work, we have the Employer Child Care Innovation Fund. So through the FY 2025 budget, EEC was appropriated $2.5 million to launch a competitive matching program that really invites the business community to bring innovative ideas forward to expanding high-quality, affordable childcare to their employees and expanding capacity in the sector. We have procured the Commonwealth Corporation Foundation, which is the 501c3 philanthropic arm of the Commonwealth Corporation under the Executive Office of Labor and Workforce Development, to be the grant administrative partner for this grant. We are really excited about that. Not only do they bring a lot of labor and workforce experience very clearly given where they sit, but they also bring a ton of expertise in developing these more kind of pilot-friendly, innovative grant opportunities that this really gives us an opportunity to do. So we've been meeting weekly between the two of us, the Executive Office of Economic Development, Labor and Workforce, obviously EEC, to design the program. The timeline we have set forth is we'd really like to put out a request for an expression of interest sometime in October, followed by a full RFP later in the year. Oh, and sorry, one more thing. Because this was brief, we do have more detailed slides on the program itself in your appendix, which gives more information on the key elements of the program, the outcomes and goals we're hoping to drive, the kind of number of awards we're hoping to give out, so on and so forth. And if you have any questions or would like more information, I'm always happy to chat.
So that closes out our highlights for now. Huge shout out to the team for all of their work every single week. It takes a lot of work to make this happen across agencies, intergovernmental partners, external partners, and just couldn't be prouder to be bringing this work forward to you all today. Would love to hear any questions or thoughts you have on the content that we shared.
Well, first, just want to say thank you. This is really exciting. Like, I say this, like, I think people, this is how government should work. like we're breaking down silos, but it takes intentionality and focus, right? And that's what you all are bringing to this work. And so Thank you. I'd love to find ways to, within this meeting, continue to share these highlights in the right way, because I think it shows that this is real, right? There's actionable things happening. There's attention focus to it. And I think it does allow us to help continue to center this sector, but citizens in like how government can help support them in their day-to-day life, and in this case, in their professional life around early education. Can I just ask a quick, Gabby, I'm fascinated by the front door, because I think I'm reflecting a lot on a partnership that clearly has worked this year, which you talked about in your opening remarks around the partnership with Mass Development and the FCC capital program, right? And so it will be interesting over time to see like what type of inquiries you're getting from the business front door, and how that aligns with the 1,600 applications that we got, and like, are there other pathways we can direct some of those people to that we may not, we have limited dollars within our pool, but is our program also a front door just as well, right? And so, it'll be interesting over time as these things grow and flourish, like how we can get some trends back to us on like how to support the sector from a business side as well, because we hear that a lot, right? Is it shared service? Is it like what are the models to help, whether it's the healthcare, like awesome idea, right? Like what are the things that we can do to just make these opportunities that exist really visible? And I think of the work that Eugenia does of just like engaging the field in this work, like it's a push, right? Like we're gonna push out this information as much as we can, but I'd love to see over time like how this all kind of talks to each other and the learnings that we can get from it outside of just the specific program. So
Feedback taken,
Yeah.
and I think that is definitely the intention. One of the things I love about how I guess EOED is rolling out the business front door is they convene all of Team Massachusetts, so all the agencies that sit behind the business front door on a bi-weekly basis to share updates, share learnings, so that kind of what you're mentioning can happen, so that these things are not sitting in silos. But that's an opportunity I hadn't thought of, and I'll absolutely take it back. So
yeah,
thank
just
you.
I think there's probably ways that we could redirect some of those
Yeah.
people that we weren't able to fund into some type of supports within that exist, right? And again, is that just another front door to create access to these programs? So, any other questions or comments from the board?
Rolling off of the
Yeah.
business front door. Well, before I do that, actually, I just want to recognize, I feel like the report rolled out in March.
Right.
This is nuts. This is like a wild amount of work already done. And it's not done, but like there's such movement. And like, I think this is to the secretary's point about having commitments in place beforehand. This really gets things moving and gets things rolling so we can see what is happening. Like in real time, it's not just ideas, we're getting stuff done. And so like, just want to recognize that it's such a short amount of time. You really had busy summers. And so that's exciting. It's also exciting because of those commitments. I think I just want to highlight and thank the governor for introducing this idea, and the secretaries for following up, following through with all of these things. Like it takes leadership to be able to create, like the chair said, right? This is intentionality, and it comes from all of these leadership roles. And so just want to recognize that, and all of the hard work you all have done and your teams have done. But rolling off of the business front door, and I have two questions. So the first is about business front door. The second is about health. And so, Gabby, from what you've heard so far, are there places where local governments could obviously step in and step up? Like, I know that particularly when we come to small business development, locals also have a role to play and regionals also have a role to play. And so, and maybe you have an answer now, but maybe you have an answer later. But like, what I'm curious about is like, wow, where could local folks, regional folks really think through their role in supporting this, especially when they have, I think, like more close to home reach and understanding of what the local needs that exist are. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I do, and we've actually seen some connections go back to local economic development offices, which is really interesting. But I think a couple of areas where that might be especially helpful is in one, site selection. It's interesting when folks are coming to us saying, like, I'm looking for a new site and I'm having trouble, whether it's from a a price point I can afford, or it meets the regulations I'm thinking through. And that is clearly a hyperlocal problem because you're not trying to move your center facility too far away from where those families already live. So that's one. And then I would say general small business support. So kind of a key resource that we direct folks to is the kind of the state level small business support center. They get a lot of inquiries, as you can imagine. So one of the better, I think, most amazing resources they offer is a one-to-one mentor, but you do have, it's amazing. But you do have to reach a certain threshold to be able to receive a mentor. So go through kind of an initial training, have a business plan, so that they know that kind of the work they're putting in is met with somebody who can kind of carry that forward. And so to see a little bit more of that being taken at the local level in those really early stages, I think would also be really helpful.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then Dana, around the Health Connector for Business, I'm excited to see these webinars roll out October 7th and October 15th. And you mentioned briefly, but I'm wondering if you could just expand on, through the focus groups, through speaking with both family child cares and centers, you mentioned that they express oh, wow, this is these are opportunities, what are some of the opportunities people express surprise around?
So within the Health Connector for Business, if a center or an FCC opts in, they're able to select a reference plan, and then their employees can actually select either up or down based on that. And so it gives more choice where a small business might not necessarily have access to that. And also the Health Connector provides brokers, and so they can talk to someone and ask questions and understand what the benefits are for them and help navigate, how do I get my employees to sign up? How do I get people to take this up? What are the costs? What are the options? And I think that piece was really exciting.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing what that turnout looks like in the next month. Thank you.
Questions?
No,
Comments?
just thank you and incredible work already, so very exciting.
As you kind of get into kind of execution mode here, right? It's not like you're doing it. I would be interesting over time to see again, the result of this executive order resulted in X amount of people having access to more affordable healthcare options, or I hear the word navigator, in some of these things, when you look at the list of that's gonna be it, but is there a mechanism to make sure that we close the loop with people, that we're not just handing them off to a dead end, or somebody that doesn't really understand what we're doing respectfully? How are we just tracking really the impact that this may have? Because I'm looking at that list of things and I'm like, wow, we're really just trying to take a lot of current and existing government programs and other agencies and making them visible and accessible. How do we measure that? Because I think it could really tell quite a story over time, I think. So
We've been thinking a lot about that,
Yeah.
especially as we start to think about the year 3 report.
Yeah.
So something that we did in the very beginning was we established charters for all of the recommendations to really ground us in what are the KPIs that we're going to
Yeah.
look at in the out years. How would we deem this successful? And it's been really challenging to start there, but also I think really valuable because it gets at just that. It's really hard to say okay, we spent this much money or whatever, but that doesn't mean anything to a lot of people. So how do we make it real? What are the outcomes that we're tracking and how are we thinking about that? And so that's grounded all of the work we've done this year and how we're looking at the year 2 report. We're trying to make that a document that reports out, but also helps us track our progress to keep us accountable to the goals of the task force.
awesome. Thank you. Other comments or suggestions?
Just one.
Yeah.
I can close it out.
Yeah, I
if you'd
think
like.
you
If
guys
there
are-
aren't other,
Well, I just wanted to add my gratitude and thanks. We've gotten to work really closely with the project management team, and starting with you, Secretary, that all the secretaries are showing up very, very purposefully for this work. They show up at every one of our leadership meetings. Secretary of Labor and Workforce Development, Secretary of Economic Development, they know what's happening in the early education and care sector, and they're deploying their teams and their resources. And that's true across the secretariats too. And people are really showing up meaningfully and caring. I mean, we didn't get to hear about all the other things that we are doing, but we will over time talk about the thoughtfulness in which our colleagues in transportation and information technology and Mass Cultural Council are thinking about going back to their resources and trying to understand how they might be leveraged or adapted or changed or catalyzed to help the early education and care sector. And I think it's a pretty unique. And I think the project management structure has had a big, important part of that too. Dana sitting right in our administration and finance. I mean, if we were leading this out of EC, I just think it would be a very different thing. And the secretariats and others have really committed project management to be able to move these things. And we had a strategic planning session this morning, and a lot of that work focused on sort of like, what is EEC going to do? And then what are the things that can be done by others that can be leveraged? And so everything we're doing is then being sort of maximized and furthered by the work of the task force. So I'm grateful for the commitment each of you bring every day, and also to the leaders that are sitting behind you making it happen. So I wondered if you might also just share what comes next. We're about a year and a half into the 3 years, theoretically, of this task force, and what will people expect next?
So I think I started to get into that a little bit, but we're really looking to our year 2 report to show everything that we've done this year and rethink a few things. I think as we've thought about the initial recommendations, there are things that actually belong together. And so we've practically been working them as one recommendation, and we've brought a lot of people together to think about like the workforce pipeline, for example. It doesn't make sense to have a bunch of different recommendations there because it's all the same people that we're bringing together. So how are we going to reframe into year 3? What's operational right now? So there's some stuff that is sort of already happening and we're capturing that, and where do we really need to focus the project management team for year 3? And so that's really where we're at right now. Looking forward to try to get a year 3 report out early March again. And we've started drafting it and thinking about what those recommendations look like and what we've learned this year, and trying to use that to make sure we're showing the work, but also recommending how we can sort of change the initial thoughts to make them more effective in the future.
Thank you.
Great. Anything else?
I was actually going to say exactly what the commissioner just said. So thank you, Commissioner, for saying that. And I also just want to explain my posture right now. I'm trying to keep myself from jumping out of the chair with excitement and joy around everything that you all just said. Certainly, I'm familiar with it, but to hear it said publicly in such beautiful ways by all of you just has me very happy and very excited and very appreciative of the, these things don't move without incredible people moving them, and you all have been leading that work in masterful ways, and I'm just really, really grateful for that. And so look forward to the next update.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
And with that, we've come to the end of our agenda. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We will see you October 15th.
October 15th.
Thank you. Have a good rest of the day.